This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
What's up, real MVPs? Ricky Widmer here, along with not the Mark Weber. I am along with the one, the only, Brandon Swanson.
Dub them E's.
Yes, you dubbed them E's this week, and we're not going to be like Dave on Too Old to Game. Dave was a little bit upset that Mark did not come to the podcast, or was not able to come, and when I went to dub them E's, he said, no, we are not dubbing them E's this week, because Mark's not here, but we're dubbing the E's here on the Onside Kick, where we talk about the NFL and football each and every week. Brandon, the last time that you were on the Onside Kick, we had a pretty divisive show, I would say. Because our last topic that week, we talked about the hype of Patrick Mahomes. And I know it's every week that this happens, so it shouldn't be new. But people did not really like me that week. They didn't like that I compared the situation to Dak Prescott and the hype that he was getting, and people thought that I was comparing them A to B, but it wasn't. It was the situations. But we got a jam-packed show for you guys this week. Before we get into it, though, a little bit of housekeeping here at the beginning. Make sure to check us out on patreon.com/mostvaluablepodcast if you want to help support the channel, help us get to where we want to go. You can also do that by getting yourself a Most Valuable Podcast t-shirt down below in the description. You can also get that at mostvaluablepodcast.com, where you can catch MVP each and every day. And then last but not least, if you're on Apple Podcasts, you're on iTunes, or you're on YouTube and you have those, please go and give the Onside Kick a 5-star rating. It would really mean the world to us. And please, if you could, write in a little something about why you like listening to the podcast each and every week. But Brandon, this week, what we were talking about, we're taking a look at the Atlanta Falcons. Are they done for 2017? Jeff Saturday thinks so. We'll see if you and I think so. Then we're going to take a look at the New York Football Giants. Should they move on from Eli Manning after the 2018 season? Then we're going to look at the Super Bowl and who has a better chance to reach it, the Rams or the Chiefs, both 5-0 teams after the first 5 weeks of the season. And then we will end the podcast making our picks for week number 6. But Brandon, the first thing I want to ask you has to do with the Atlanta Falcons. This is a team that in the preseason, I don't know about Mark. I know Mark had them in the playoffs. But this is a team I had as either my number 1 or number 2 team. They were either 12 or 13 wins, maybe even 14 wins on the season. They are definitely not going to get any of those. Well, they can still get 12, but they're definitely not getting 14 or 13 on the year, as they are now 1-4 after 5 weeks. And I want to ask you, do you agree with Jeff Saturday, who on ESPN, after the game had happened yesterday against the Steelers, came out and declared the Falcons season is a wrap, meaning they are done for 2018? Are you buying that? Are the Falcons done this year?
I am buying that. I think that Atlanta has been extremely poor in their play. If you look at week 1, both teams, both them and the Eagles, and the Eagles, I mean, there could be another story about how the Eagles are a pathetic team right now, but Atlanta did not look good in that one. A lot of people came out and they said, because the Falcons were ranked 23rd in the league in red zone efficiency last year, a lot of people came out and said, what are you guys doing? You're terrible yet again in the red zone, which they struggled. I mean, there were 2 specific times, one at the beginning of the game, one at the end of the game, where they struggled. They could not get the ball in the end zone, and you're like inside the 10, 5-yard line. And many times in that last drive, it was Matt Ryan for Julio Jones, Matt Ryan for Julio Jones, Matt Ryan for Julio Jones. Everyone knows what you're doing. Everyone knows that you're trying to go to Julio Jones.
But then when we don't go to Julio Jones, we get upset.
But here's the thing, though, is that what he has done since week 1 is he has started to spread the ball around a lot more. That's why Calvin Ridley finally came on the emerged and came on the scene. You were so upset with Calvin Ridley after week 1. You're like, I'm going to drop him. He's terrible. I don't want him anymore on my fantasy team. He sucks.
Good
blah,
thing
blah.
I didn't.
Ricky, he had 1 game, and he caught 1 catch in a game where both offenses were so bad.
Good thing I didn't, because he's been nothing but great for me, except for this past week where I was yet again, I'm done with Calvin Ridley. I should have benched him, should have played Mark Ingram. That's where I was at this week.
But you're also looking at a defense
boomer bust team
that has been horrible. This defense has been bad. This defense has already been riddled by injuries early. Week 1 they lost guys, and then week 2 now to week 5 they have just continued to lose more. Going into the game this past weekend, game in Pittsburgh, where yes, Big Ben Roethlisberger usually plays his best football, but even still, look at week 2 when they played Kansas City and the Chiefs went up early 21-0 in quarter number 1 against Pittsburgh. Yes, Pittsburgh came back. They still lost, but they came back and everything like that. The Falcons only were able to muster 17 points against a pretty poor Pittsburgh defense, but Pittsburgh scored 41 points. Not all of them were offensive points, because I know one of them was a fumble recovery, a block punt fumble recovery for a touchdown by Pittsburgh, but this is an Atlanta Falcons team that is in a whole lot of trouble. They're not running the ball effectively. They don't even have a main running back. Before it was Devonta Freeman. Then it was Devonta Freeman and Tevin Coleman. Then Freeman got hurt every other week. So then it was Tevin Coleman. Now they throw Ito Smith into that. Who's Ito Smith? What's going on? No one has any consistent share in terms of running the football, and they're not going anywhere with it. It's not really helping them. Matt Ryan can't do it all himself. He has 11 touchdowns to 2 interceptions, but for some reason, that is not equating to wins. You lose a heartbreaker to the Cincinnati Bengals the week before this Pittsburgh game. That's horrible. You win a 31-24 game against the Carolina Panthers. That one could have gone the other way. And then you lose another heartbreaker to the New Orleans Saints. This has been a disaster to start the season for the Atlanta Falcons, and I just don't necessarily see them being able to turn it around.
No, and I think they are done. But the big thing I was coming in at, 2 things. First off, on the defensive side, you mentioned it. Injuries already. Like, they had them before, like, beginning of the year. Like, September, you had, and I'm looking at the injury report, September 11th, you had both Deion Jones and Keanu Neal, both on the IR for a foot and an ACL. Then you had on the 25th of September, Ricardo Allen. Achilles. He's going to be put on the IR. So basically, end of September, you lost both of your starting safeties and your middle linebacker, and expect this defense to be just as good as it was last year. Like, especially the Keanu Neal injury. Like, that to me is huge for this team. Then my second point, and I want to ask you this of what you think with the offense. You mentioned how, last year they ranked poorly in red zone offense. This year, they're already ranking poorly in red zone offense. Yeah, the Eagle game, you could look at that and go, all right, that was a close game. Both teams weren't good. We probably should have won that. There's a New Orleans game. That one was close. They probably should have won that one. The Bengal game, they probably should have won that one. I know woulda, coulda, shoulda is in there, but this is a team that's a bounce or two away from being 3-4-1. Yeah, 4-1, and not 1-4. But the thing I look at is with the struggles of this offense, how does Sarkisian still have a job? Like, wouldn't you think that, all right, the offense is not doing good, it hasn't been doing well, we need to get rid of you in order to make things better. Like, I know I know this is college compared to the NFL, but look at Oklahoma. They struggled this week against Texas. Stoops is gone. Stoops is gone. Defensive coordinator, you're out of here. So, I mean, part of me looks at it and goes, how does Sarkisian still have a job as the OC? Now, the good thing for the Falcons is coming up in their next 2 before the bye, they get Tampa Bay, who is struggling. Jameis Winston, this will be the first official start he'll have this year, so we'll see what they're like with that. And they get a struggling New York team that we're going to talk about later in the podcast. So they do get 2 teams that they could maybe get wins in the next 2 games, but how has nobody been like, yeah, you know what, maybe we need to make a change, or are they waiting until the end of the year? And at the end of the year, we'll see a change where Sarkisian gets fired and we see a new offensive coordinator in town for Atlanta. I
think the first thing that they should probably do is maybe get rid of the offensive line coach. Matt Ryan has been sacked 16 times already this season. 16 times. You know who else has been sacked 16 times? Eli Manning. 16 times. And guess what? The Atlanta Falcons, the last time I checked, they didn't have Flowers as one of their offensive linemen. Get that guy out of there. He sucks. We'll talk about that soon. But this is a team right now, the Atlanta Falcons, where something has to change. You are 4th in the NFC South. You are 4th. You are bad. You are bad. There's got to be something that changes here.
Yeah.
There's got to be something that changes here. You're going to be going into the bye here soon enough. In what, week 8 is it? Week 8, you've got your bye. Going into that, you've got a game against Tampa Bay coming up this next weekend.
And both of them are home games, too.
The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are coming off of a terrible loss to the Chicago Bears, and then their bye week. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are coming out with Jameis Winston at the helm. The Bucs, they've got a lot of weapons. They have 0 running game, so don't even need to defend against that. There's nothing to defend against.
Defense isn't really that good either.
No. You don't think the Bucs defense is good?
Hasn't been this year. I mean,
I'm being facetious. They just gave up 45 points. Of course, they're not good.
Okay.
You're trying to make a point. Like you thought I was serious. I don't know if you know this, but they are not good this year. Yes, I have seen. They're not good.
You gave me a look, and I was like, well, are we watching the same Buccaneer team?
Sometimes you just have to be able to catch on to something called a little of sarcasm.
Man, sometimes I cannot, especially in the comment section, but go on.
So you play a Tampa Bay Buccaneer team. This is another game that is going to be probably shaping up to be another shootout. Another shootout with both of these teams. And for Atlanta, that hasn't been good. This past weekend against Pittsburgh, I'll bring it up again. It was supposed to be a shootout. Well, Pittsburgh won the shootout, 41-17. So something obviously was not all that bad for Pittsburgh's defense, or something obviously is not all that right for Atlanta's offense. And again, I think it's one of those things where you're becoming one-dimensional. The Atlanta Falcons are becoming one-dimensional. Matt Ryan has already thrown for over 1,600 yards. 1,601 yards. On the ground, they've only run it for a total of 446 yards combined on 115 attempts. He's thrown the football 183 times. There needs to be some more balance in this Atlanta Falcons offense. There has to be. With you talking about Sarkisian, I think that unless he makes a change to say, okay, we need to balance this a little bit more. Now that we've got Devonta Freeman back and he's fully healthy, he's a full go, we need to feed him the rock a little bit more. Of course, if he's not being successful in running the ball, we can't do that, or we shouldn't do that, but you need to run the football a little bit more to open things up for this passing game. And I know that a lot of people would say, well, what exactly are you talking about? They've already been passing the football, but effectively having defenses, not necessarily completely be playing pass every single time. Julio Jones, I mean, we continue to talk about this guy. He has no touchdowns on the year. Why does he have no touchdowns on the year? Because everyone and their mom and their dad and their brother and their sister knows the ball is going to go to Julio Jones.
Yeah.
Or that Matt Ryan wants to go there. And that's why now that Calvin Ridley's come onto the scene, Mohamed Sanu is being worked in more. Austin Hooper is a guy that's been worked in more. He was worked in a lot this past weekend. Those guys are becoming open a little bit more, which hopefully maybe will catch some defenses off and you can go to Julio Jones. This just right now, when this Atlanta team was clicking, they were clicking because Matt Ryan to Julio Jones was something that happened every single week. There was always a big play. There was always a big day for both of them. This running game was good. Devonta Freeman was great, and he was spelled by a really good Tevin Coleman. This defense was good. They were getting takeaways. Ricky, we're not seeing any of those things. None of them. That's why the Atlanta Falcons are 1-4 fourth in the NFC South.
It just baffles me how this is a team, like, even when you look at this, where, so Sarkisian took over for the Falcons in February of 2017 when he replaced Kyle Shanahan, because Shanahan went to be the coach of the San Francisco 49ers. the offensive scoring output for the Falcons dropped from around 33, almost 34 points per game in 2016 to about 22 last year. Like, that alone, plus what we've already seen this year, I feel like the problem is Steve Sarkisian is the problem. Like, because it's not going to be Dan Quinn that does it, because Dan Quinn's a defensive-minded guy. You got to make the decision, hey, maybe it's in the middle of the season. Maybe you don't want to make that decision in the middle of this season. But, I mean, I look at it and I go, something needs to be addressed. Is it Sarkisian? That's what I think it is. Is it what you were saying? If I'm going to go with the offensive line coach, is it Chris Morgan? Is he the problem? Is it a guy like Raheem Moore, who's the wide receivers and passing game coordinator? Is that the problem? There is something wrong with this offense, because when you had a guy like Kyle Shanahan, maybe it just means Kyle Shanahan is just really good, which we know that he is a smart offensive mind, and we do already know he's good. But maybe this is like, oh man, maybe Kyle Shanahan is really good, and we didn't make the right choice by bringing in Steve Sarkisian to this. Like, even look at Alabama. Like, I know I'm going back to college, but think about Alabama's offense when Sarkisian was the offensive coordinator compared to when he left and then Lane Kiffin took that role. The offense looked a little, like, correct me if I'm wrong, that Alabama offense looked a little bit better, probably a lot bit better, with Lane Kiffin running the show than it did with Sarkisian. Maybe he's the that's what I look at. Maybe he's the problem. And when you got a guy like Matt Ryan, and you got a guy like Julio Jones, and you got a phenomenal rookie now like Calvin Ridley, you shouldn't have a problem scoring the football. And I know that, like I said, there's a part of it too where the Saints game close, the Eagles game close, the Bengals game close. The bottom line is you lost those games, but in a woulda, coulda, shoulda world, those could have been flipped into wins. I know that they're not, but they could have. However, you don't have many chances. The next two we talked about could be winnable games. All right, you're to 3-4, but then after that, after the bye, you're going into Washington. Washington's a better team this year. Could probably win the East this year. You go into Cleveland, which it shocks me to say this. Well, it shouldn't, because they're a good team now, but Cleveland is a good team now and could give you trouble in Cleveland. You play the Saints again. You play Baltimore. You play Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. By that time, Arizona, are they clicking a little better because Josh Rosen is getting more games under your belt? And then you get Carolina also later in the season again.
On the road, and then Tampa Bay on the road. Both of them on the road.
Both of them on the road to end the year. So it's like, your schedule does not get any. It gets briefly easy before it gets harder. And after your bye week, your schedule doesn't be like, oh man, here's a stretch of games that are really easy, because you look at it before the bye, you're playing, 5 of your 8 home games before the bye? So that means you're only home 3 weeks from week 9 to week 17. You're only home for 3 weeks after the bye. That is going to be brutal. I agree with Jeff Saturday. The season's over for the Falcons. Get ready for 2019.
Well, I think that you can look at this too, is that they have been able to score. They have been able to score. Mm-hmm. They have. In week 1 against the Eagles, they only put up 12 points, so they weren't able to score in that one. But their defense did pretty well. They only gave up 18 points. You would like to think that you have an offense built for more than 12, and you do. But that was just such a lousy game, especially to start the year for any football fan. It was boring to watch. And then the Carolina Panthers, you put up 31 and you win. The Saints, you put up 37 and you lose. Mm-hmm. The Bengals, you put up 36 and you lose. The Bengals, you put up 36 and you lost. Mm-hmm. Go home and definitely hide for a week after that one.
That was one. Andy Dalton made plays in that one to win the game for the Bengals. So I want to give Andy Dalton some credit.
You can give Andy Dalton a lot of credit for that, but it's the Bengals. I don't know how more clear I can be about that.
Ask the comment section last week. The Bengals are here. It's like one of the comment sections. One of the commenters said, Oh, wow. I didn't know we didn't have to call. We had to call the Bengals God for Bengal fans to feel appreciated.
So I will. That's actually really funny. But yes, I know the Bengals are a much improved team. Their 4-1 record would show it. Andy Dalton has been oddly consistent, and they have Joe Mixon, who is really good. I think people were hoping he would break out this year. He's I think doing that even after a couple of week hiatus due to injury. They've got wide receivers. They've got a good defense. They look like a good team, but still, you're the Atlanta Falcons, and you're supposed to be this really high-powered offense, and your defense should not be giving up 37 points after you just gave up 43. You're not going to win with that. You are not going to win with that. In the last 3 weeks, this defense, while you were saying is alluding to the point of Steve Sarkisian should go, their defensive coordinator should be slapped in the face. They've given up 43, 37, and 41 in the last 3 weeks. If you score 37 points, you should win. If you score 36 points, you should win. 17 points? Okay, maybe you don't beat the Steelers in Pittsburgh. Okay, well, the world's not going to fall and end because you didn't beat the Pittsburgh Steelers in Pittsburgh where Big Ben plays his best football. All right, you can take that one, but you can't take that one after you just lost 2 home games to New Orleans and to Cincinnati where you scored 37 and 36 respectively and then gave up 43 and 37 respectively. That is without question unbelievably bad. And that's the problem right now with the Atlanta Falcons. While we can sit here and dissect how their offense could be better and if they had a better running game and if Julio Jones was more involved, which is what we did, we have to at the same time be able to say, your defense has gone home. You need to call them back. Tell them they need to get off the couch and play because they have not been. They've been sitting as bystanders as everyone else seems to play every week. Does Atlanta know they only have 1 bye per season? They've had 3 the last 3 weeks. This has been a disgrace for Atlanta football. They've been terrible. They should have won their 2 out of their last 3 games for sure. And it's because it's not to say that the Bengals are a bad team. It's not to say that the Saints are a bad team. But it is to say that the Atlanta defense is better than this. But unfortunately, they haven't played like it.
The last thing I will say when it comes to the defense, the thing that's hard, though, with the defense is, like I said, you lose both of your starting safeties. They're on the IR. They're out. Deion Jones is out. I get the whole next man up thing. And obviously, you draft and sign guys to be the next man. But, like, you lose a guy like Keanu Neal, that's going to be hard to replace, although you don't want to make any excuses. Before we end it, I've said it for sure. Season's over for the Falcons. I'm sorry, Atlanta fans. What's your answer? Are they done for 2018? The official answer for Brandon Swanson?
They've dug themselves into a really deep hole. I think it's going to be hard to get out of.
Well, this is where you guys come in. Falcon fans, let us know what you guys think. I know you guys will. Let us know what you think down below in the comment section. Is your season over? Are we overreacting for saying that? Do you think this team can climb out of the big hole that Brandon mentioned that they had dug themselves into already after 5 weeks of the NFL season? Let us know what you guys think down below in that comment section.